Good afternoon from the internet. Excuse me. Good afternoon from the Johnson Space Center in Houston, and welcome to our Expedition 40 mission overview briefing. I'm Dan Hewitt. Just 1 week from today, 3 new crew members will be launching to the International Space Station to join Expedition 40 already in progress. Here to give us a look at what's ahead for the crews over the next couple of months, we have Dan Hartman, Deputy Program Manager of the International Space Station Program, and also Greg Whitney, who will be the lead flight director for Expedition 40. We'll start off with opening remarks from them and then open it up for questions. Dan, why don't you go ahead and start us off?
All right, thank you very much, Dan, and good afternoon, everybody. Let's see, we are in the midst of a pretty heavy flight schedule that we have underway. As you know, the 37S crew returned last week, landing in Kazakhstan. Everything went perfectly. We got the crew back on 992 and got them safely back in Houston. Rick, Koichi, and Misha are doing outstanding, and it's great. I'd say congratulations to our Russian colleagues for a very, very successful mission. As you also know, SpaceX 3 landed on Sunday and reached port yesterday. They stayed on board ISS for about a month period. Very, very successful mission. We got 2 major payloads out of the trunk that we use robotically, FRAM-type devices, OPALs, and HDEV that we've put out on the external surfaces of the space station. Those are both functioning perfectly. And then SpaceX splashed down on Sunday, and we've been the spacecraft has been towed back to port. And yesterday afternoon, we got all the research samples off that were kind of our early desto. They were transferred back to Houston last night and turned over to the principal investigators. And the remaining cargo will be transferred to Houston, and we hope to get it on Friday. SpaceX did incur a minor water excursion that they saw upon opening the hatch. It has not caused us any impacts that we know of, and so we'll be looking into that further. But the Dragon will be moving from the Hawthorne area, from the Long Beach area, over to McGregor, where they'll do some further inspections. But again, no impacts that we're aware of right now. Also on that return, as we work through our EVA issues, numerous EMU-related items were returned, a lot of water samples, filters, 2 of the fan pump separators, which we believe is what clogged, or we know that's what clogged for the EMU suit where we had water in the helmet. So all that will be brought back home, and we'll do some investigation work and try to get to a root cause on that. And we also brought home the 3015 suit, so that was a major thing for us as well. In addition, we brought back 3 of the cards that were in the failed external MDM that we experienced about a month ago. So we'll bring those back. We'll try to understand the failure mode and make some improvements on future cards if required. The R&R of that MDM did happen during a SpaceX 3 mission. It was completely successful. We are full up on our redundant capability on the truss segments, so that's great news. A couple weeks ago, we did experience an issue with our 3A power string. That's one of our 8 power buses that we have. A couple years ago, we had a similar failure in the box called a sequential shunt unit that we actually we reintegrated at that time a couple years ago, although we knew we probably had caused some damage inside that box. As we've suffered this failure a few weeks back and have done some investigative work, it looks like the box has incurred additional power string failures. I think each blanket that comes off one of the solar array panels has 41 circuits that head toward the SSU. Just based on some of the current that we're seeing, we think we may have damaged 5 or 6 additional strings in that SSU. And I'll say on the first failure, we think we incurred maybe 1 or 2. So this was a little bit more damage. Right now, we've elected not to reintegrate the SSU back into the prime string. Our ops teams feel very comfortable with the 7 of 8 power channels on where we stand. And so we'll go look at potentially performing an EVA, and Greg will talk a little bit about them later. We'll either integrate it into our August set of EVAs, or if we still have if we have some concern where we think we need to go out a little bit earlier, we'll plan that for the July time period. But I don't see us going out the door any time before that. Again, it's a relatively simple EVA as far as the box is concerned. There's some choreography that we need to make sure we understand it. It is not one of the big 13s that we've always talked about, so that's why you don't see us rushing out the door in an immediate manner. But it is something that we have our eyes on, and that we'll take care of. The reason why we don't want to reintegrate the box, even with, I'll say 80%, 85% of all the channels working, is there is some risk of collateral damage when you try to power that box on that we could impact some upstream or downstream components. And so we're just going to set tight, and then when the time's right, we'll go out and change that box out. And as I mentioned, Greg will talk a little bit more detail about 3 EVAs that are planned in our August time period. Obviously, we won't go EVA until we fully understand the risk associated with that from again, with Lucas and the water in the helmet. We're making great strides in understanding all aspects of that, and have a tremendous team in place that are tackling that problem on a daily basis. Again, with the 37S return and the SpaceX 3 return, we have a significant amount of evidence come back to help us solve that problem. As far as upcoming flights, next week 39S will launch, so we're looking forward to having Max, Reed, and Alexander on the station with us to get back up to a crew size of 6. Some of our team members will be departing for the launch site tomorrow and Friday, so we're in full swing mode in supporting that. 53P will undock on June 9th. Right now, Orb 2 from Orbital Science is scheduled for June 10th, and so we're looking forward to get that set of cargo up to the station for us. The last ATV launch is still slated at the end of July, and I think its actual docking date is going to be around the August 10th, August 12th time period. So a little bit of loiter time with the ATV. And then SpaceX 4 will be late August, the early September time period. For all the research that are on those flights, and there's a tremendous amount, and it's going to be exciting. I think there's a presentation or science out briefing at 2:30 that will discuss all that, and so stay tuned for that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Greg.
All right, thanks, Dan. Hi, I'm Greg Whitney, the lead flight director for Increment 40, which started about a week ago when the 37S crew undocked from the space station. That was the crew of Koichi Wakata, Rick Mastracchio, and Misha Turin. They're going to be, let's see, the Increment 40 crew that's up there right now, Steve Swanson, Oleg Artemiev, and Alexander Skvortsov, will be joined on May 28th by the 39S crew of Reed Wiseman, Max Sarayev, and Alexander Gerst. Reed Wiseman, this is his first space flight. He was selected as a NASA astronaut in 2009, and he completed training in 2011. Max Sarayev, who's the Soyuz commander, he is a veteran cosmonaut where he spent 169 days in space as an Expedition 21-22 flight engineer, and he was also the Soyuz 20 commander at that time. In addition to those tasks, he performed a 6-hour EVA to complete the integration of the MRM-2 module. Alexander Gerst is also a first-time flyer along with Reed. He's an ESA astronaut from Germany, and he was selected in 2009, and he was assigned to this crew in 2011. The 39S crew departed from Moscow. You can see them here on the video. They left for Baikonur on May 15th. Their first Soyuz fit check, which you can see there in the video, was May 16th. And they're going to continue their preparations in Kazakhstan for launch at 2:56 p.m. Central Time on May 28th. And they will be docking to the MRM-1 module, which is on the nadir underside of the ISS. About 6 hours later, they'll be doing a 4-orbit rendezvous. At the time of the 39 Soyuz docking, there's going to be 3 other vehicles attached to the ISS. 39S will be at MRM-1, like I said earlier. 38S, which is the current crew's vehicle, will be on MRM-2. Progress 55 will be on DC-1, and Progress 53 will be on the aft end of the service module. SpaceX, as Dan was mentioning, successfully completed their mission. They were berthed to the underside of Node 2, or the Harmony module, and they did that on May 18th and successfully splashed down in the Pacific. I'll go over the dates of the other major increment activity, and of course, this is all subject to change as our increment planning progresses But the first vehicle to depart following the arrival of 39S is going to be Progress 53, and that will be departing on June 9th. And then, as Dan mentioned, June 10th we'll be launching the Orbital 2 vehicle, and that will be launched from Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia and berthing to the Harmony module, and that will be scheduled for June 13th. Our first EVA of the increment will be June 19th, and the spacewalkers will be Alexander Skvortsov and Oleg Artemyev. In that EVA, they will be going ahead and putting a new comm system antenna on the SM, and they'll be also deploying a payload boom, performing several experiments, and taking photos of the Russian exterior. So going into July, on July 11th, we are planning the unberthing of Orbital 2. And then on July 22nd, we'll be undocking Progress 55 from the Pirs docking compartment, or DC-1. And then July 23rd, we'll be launching the 56P, or 56 Progress, from Baikonur, and that will be docking to the ISS 6 hours later to the DC-1 module. And then to finish up July, we'll be launching ATV-5, which is the final ATV scheduled, and I would pronounce its name, but I think I would only disappoint my French teacher and my Canadian astronauts if I tried that, so we'll just call it ATV-5 now. But we'll be docking ATV-5 in August 12th right now. August is going to be a really busy month for us. In addition to ATV-5, we're also going to be launching SpaceX 4 at this point. We're targeting August 8th at this time, but as we said, those dates are scheduled to change, and typically it would dock to the ISS 2 days later. And then on August 20th, we have the second Russian EVA, so Russian EVA 39. Again, the spacewalkers will still be Alexander Skvortsov and Oleg Artemyev, and on that EVA, we'll be deploying a nano satellite, also an additional antenna, a wall antenna, and we'll be performing additional payload installations and retrievals. Along with the 2 Russian EVAs, as Dan mentioned, we are tentatively planning 3 US EVAs to occur in the August timeframe. Of course, that's all dependent upon our ability to get EVA capability back, planned EVA capability back. And we're closely following those recovery efforts, but I will go ahead and describe the content of those EVAs at this point. So EVA 27 will be conducted by Steve Swanson and Reed Weissman, and the main objective of that EVA is to go ahead and restore the thermal control system on the port truss, the P6 array, back to its original configuration. The second of the 3 EVAs will also be, will performed by Reed Weissman, but he'll be joined by Alexander Gerst at this time, and they will be stowing the failed pump module that failed back in December. They're going to be putting that near the airlock, and then we'll be installing a new set of power cables on the mobile transporter, and also improving our lighting and camera capability outside with putting additional an R&R of the light on the lab module, and then we'll be trying to get a lens cover removed from a camera that's on the MT in order to improve its visibility. And then the final EVA that's planned will also be performed by Reed Weissman and Alexander Gerst, and this is all in preparation for relocating the PMM. And so we'll be going ahead and moving some cameras that are in the way of the PMM's new location, and in addition to some other tools that are stowed exterior. And then we'll be relocating a WETA, which is a wireless camera capability. It allows us to get the video from the EVA crew members' helmets, and we'll also continue to improve our camera capability outside as well. So that we'll keep you updated on the EVA statuses and planning throughout the increment, and that basically conducts the EVA part of the mission. And then in September, we'll be looking at the departure of SpaceX 4, and that will be on September 7th. And then September 10th, just a few days later, increment 40 will end, and that will be with the departure of the 38S crew, which is Steve Swanson, Alexander Skvortsov, and Oleg Artemyev. Reed, Max, and Alex will stay on board through November, and then they'll see the arrival of their Expedition 41 crewmates, which you see on this photo. And those crewmates are Butch Wilmore, Alexander, and Yelena Serova, and they'll be coming up in late September. So as you can see, our key challenges for this increment are managing the slew of vehicle traffic that we have, in addition to the EVAs that are planned, and of course we also have a very ambitious utilization schedule as well on top of that. And so it's going to be a challenging time for both the ground and the onboard crew, but we're looking forward to it, and it'll be a great mission. And of course, we'll have some more information regarding the science that we'll be conducting in that increment at 2:30. So thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Greg. We'll go ahead and open it up for questions now. We'll start here in the room, and then we'll take questions via the phone. Why don't we go ahead and start, Mark?
Thank you, Mark Carreau for Aviation Week. I have a couple of questions, and the first one has to do with the power channel loss. I just wondered, has that impacted at this point anything? I'm especially looking at the science agenda, but that could apply to different kinds of life support function or communication. And I'm sort of wondering, how much kind of margin or time do you have to address that? Is that something you can get to when you can, or is it something you would like to do pretty soon when you can restore maintenance EVAs?
Sure. So the loads that were on 3A, we transferred over to 3B, and so we've got complete capability so we didn't lose any functionality. So all of our regen system, everything in the Node 3 lab is fully operational. And Greg might be able to help me out, but honestly, I don't know of any restrictions as associated with the science campaign that we're trying to run as well. So of the power channels on station, if you go through 1A, 1A, 1B, all 3A was, I shouldn't say it was a good one to fail from an overall criticality aspect. The reason why we're kind of hedging our bets on the EVA is you can get into the discussion on the next worst failure, and so we've done that work as well. There are a couple scenarios where you certainly would want to go out there and fix the box pretty quickly, and so we're working on the procedures to get the EVA potted NBL runs, procedure work that the EVA teams do. So we'll be ready to go. We basically asked MOD to find a good home for it. If they can't find a good home for it, I'm fairly comfortable we can get it, mix it in with the August. If not, we'll go conduct this, and probably that'll be the thing we go do. If we do the SSU swap on an upcoming prior to the August EVAs, we'll probably just go do that sole function and take care of that box and come back in. Again, we want to make sure we preserve, we want to fully understand before we go operational EVAs that we fully understand our root cause and we're comfortable in that. And so that looks like that's going to take us, into July to go perform, to do that, to keep on going through all the samples that we got home and then coming up with root cause and getting ourselves 100% comfortable.
Then I had a follow-up on the spacewalk plans, and you mentioned doing some setup work for moving the PMM, and I'm wondering if you can look out even on a rough scale. Can you sort of explain when that might happen? And then I believe all this is sort of tied in to develop establishing a docking capability for the commercial crew. And I'm just sort of trying to gather the out context on what that will be about.
I think I can probably handle that. So we're trying to free up and try to create 2 berthing ports and 2 docking ports. So eventually our docking ports will be Node 2 forward and Node 2 zenith. We'll maintain a berthing port on Node 2 nadir, and we need to move some hardware around to make sure we have a berthing port for cargo vehicles on Node 3 nadir. And so is that the right? Node 3 nadir. That's the game plan and that requires the shuffling that we have to do with the PMM and things like that. So again, we're trying to maintain a prime redundant backup for both our commercial crew cargo vehicles, as well as our crewed vehicles and our cargo vehicles, prime redundant ports.
Okay, Robert.
With regards to the upcoming Soyuz launch, the previous launch had an issue that resulted in a delayed rendezvous, resulting back to the older 2-day rendezvous. Can you just summarize the understanding of why that occurred and the confidence that it won't occur again?
Sure. And Greg, you probably help me out if I need some. But there's a time, so they're based on where they were on their trajectory and their attitude and their rates. They missed, I think, the DV3 burn, by about, 1 degree, 1.5 degrees. They were off in attitude. They've gone back and looked at that and have acknowledged that that is way too tight of a tolerance for what really needs to be in play. Honestly, I think they're surprised they hadn't seen it before. And so they've widened that tolerance band out a little bit, and so don't expect any issues.
And just to follow up on the previous set of questions about the EVAs, the move of the PMM isn't, if I'm correct, is in support of adding the beam to the station. Has the delay in being able to do maintenance spacewalks or prepare for that caused a delay to when you expect the beam to be launched and added?
No, I think beam is still slated for SpaceX 10, and we need to get all this commercial crew, the C2, V2, the docking, the IDAs in place. That's well before when beam will show up. SpaceX, it might be, Eric, I need to probably go back and look at that. It might be SpaceX 8, and so I need to go follow up on that, on when beam flies. But it's not driving anything we're doing associated with the EVAs, location of the beam.
Okay, we'll go ahead and go to our phone bridge now. We'll start off with Elizabeth Howell with Universe Today. Elizabeth, you there? Okay, moving on, let's try James Tutton with Valencia College Newspaper. James? Okay, looks like we might have lost our phone bridge. Any follow-ups then here in the room? Mark?
Yeah, I'd like to kind of follow up on my own question about the docking hardware that will eventually be placed on for commercial crew. And I'm wondering if you can tie that a little bit more into moving the PMM and what happens after you move it in order to establish that capability.
And I may need to go back and get a refresher on it, Mark. I think there's movement of modules deals with clearance envelopes on visiting vehicles that come and go. Certainly the front, the node 2 is pretty clear, but I think associated with where we put that second berthing part is what's really causing us to get into the module swap around. I don't know, Greg, if you have anything else on that, but I think that's the clearances for these visiting vehicles that come in. I think that's the prime reason. But we certainly have that information. It's just not off the top of my head.
The space suit question. When you get to the point where you're resuming the so-called maintenance kind of spacewalk, how will you be postured in terms of spacesuits and equipment on the station, as opposed to sort of where you are now? And I guess what I'm looking at, is what kind of robustness or redundancy you'll have in components. Are you following some new sort of strategy in terms of troubleshooting? I know some of that's still being worked out, but I'm just trying to get a sense of how you'll go back into that again, because it seems like there will be some stuff that's piled up and maybe somewhat more urgency than there would have been a year or so ago when you had to stop.
As far as protecting ourselves for the capability for EVA, we'll still maintain 4 suits on orbit. So that was our plan. That will still be our plan. I think we'll end up flying additional spares to support the EMU suit. That might be some additional fan pump separators that we have, certainly filters and stuff like that. So those are the main, and I would also say we'll probably do a more aggressive water sampling and bringing water samples back home till we really can understand the water chemistry that makes up the flows in and out of the suits. So we're kind of always on the learning curve where we're seeing any kind of trends, and so we can aggressively attack the problem at that time. Those are the main changes I think that we are going to go implement.
Okay, any more? All right, short briefing today. That'll wrap it up. Like they both alluded to, we're going to have a science forum coming up at 2:30 p.m. Central. We're looking at science going up soon. and also all the science happening over the next 10 years or so of the International Space Station. So to be sure to tune in for that. And as always, you can get all of the latest on the International Space Station, the expeditions, and the science by going to nasa.gov/station. Thanks for joining us.